All right. So welcome everyone. Today's Zoom at 8 call. Today is May 19th, 2020. I still feel like I'm back in January. So we're progressing as we are stuck in COVID. My name is Julianne Peterson and I'm with Old Capital Lending. We are a premier provider of capital for mostly multifamily, but we do for storage, mobile home park, office, retail, and some industrial. So if there is a need, please, I would like the opportunity to provide your debt or at least have a conversation. I will be your host tonight, and I wanted to break things up. We have been doing speaker after speaker after speaker, and I wanted to take a break. I know with COVID, we have had back-to-back Zoom calls, day-to-day Zoom calls, and so I have found I just need to take a break and kind of connect with you guys and find out what you are all doing. So I'm going to push it over to find out what is different today than what it was, how you found yourself 8 weeks ago. I'd like to spend about 20 minutes discussing this, and then I'd also like to open it up to break out into the different rooms. I know that Brian has done this. He does it on a weekly basis, but for those of you who cannot make it at lunch, I thought it might be fun to break out into small group just for 20 minutes, because these are the people that you're going to be doing business with. And the people that show up at lunch may not be the same people that are showing up at dinner, or, well, maybe it's dessert time for where you are. But I would like to end up doing that. But for the time being right now, I would like to have the question is, what are you doing differently, or where are you finding yourself 8 weeks later in COVID? What have you done differently? So I'll open that up. Who would like to start? Go ahead, Danielle. You want to start? I can tell you got your hand up.
That is not entirely accurate. I have my hand on my console, my car. Thank you.
You're in your car? Oh, I see it now. Wow.
Yeah, she's driving over the bridge.
You're driving over the bridge.
Can you hear me okay since I'm in my car?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So, well, gosh, what a great question. Honestly, I mean, pre-COVID, we're right on the cusp of 2 months ago. It was my birthday that it was starting, March 15th. So, pre-COVID, I wasn't even signed up for this program with Michael Blanc. So I wasn't even in this community. So, I mean, everything's different. I'm looking at deals. I'm analyzing deals. I have this whole new community that I'm engaging with. That's brand new. Interesting, I'm a physician. I have my own practice, and my practice is like, I don't know, it was like 25%. Now it's like 40% of what it normally is. So that's all shifting in my business with my practice. But it's been good to have this downtime to learn about, multifamily investing and building a network. And I have a new partner in multifamily investing that is doing the course with me, and that's a whole new partnership relationship that's developing. So that's exciting. And I think for me right now is just every week having new goals to move the needle further to get into our first deal. So right now we're looking at a couple properties in Baltimore and just really getting the skill set to know how to run the numbers so that we're doing it responsibly, we're underwriting conservatively. And also what's new is like I'm having conversations with people about investing with me, like kind of doing those soft conversations, like kind of testing the waters, and just really shoring up my own education so that I'm being responsible when it comes to the possibility or the prospect of taking on people's money. I'm in the early phases of my education, but I'm full of optimism and excitement, and it's been really good. And I'm committed that me and my partner are going to have our first deal with it, by the end of the year. He's saying sooner than that, so I'm going to support him in that. But yeah, like we looked at we're looking at a 45 unit right now, and we did all the numbers in the SDA on the OM, but we finally got the T12, and it's like, wow, that looks really different. So really getting in the weeds with those numbers and getting people around us who can look at those numbers more astutely to help us navigate, like, where can we cut costs? Where is those expenses too high? And, what's the value we can bring? So that's where I'm at.
Well, that's outstanding. I welcome you. I'm so glad you're here with us. I spent an hour with the next guest on the Old Capital podcast, Gary Van Bortel. There he is live in person. So Gary and John.
Hi, Julie.
Good afternoon. We got to speak on the Old Capital podcast, which is a great honor to be part of that. And so Gary, the question is, how do you find yourself 8 weeks into COVID? What are you doing different? So I know that you have a lot to share what you're doing differently over the last 8 weeks. What would you like to tell us about that?
Well, I'm being a lot more patient. It's a challenge. We definitely have some tenants that are behind on rent, and there's nothing we can do about it. So it calls for a lot of patience. We're trying to make as much contact and help tenants the best we can. Our property management is offering, assistance with unemployment or whatever else they can fill out to try to get assistance. But I think we're all kind of in the same boat. I've got a few that are just either unable or unwilling to pay, and as much as you want to bang your head against the wall, it's there's not much that can be done. So you just look at the positives best you can, and we'll get through it.
So frustrating. Coming over to multifamily, Gary and John closed in February, right before COVID hit the bricks, and man, oh man, you were handed quite a pile, if you will. We never knew that we would be able to see the days where, tenants have more rights at this point on the eviction process and all of that stuff. So, oh my goodness. Well, Gary, you've had a good, quick learning in 8 weeks, so you're managing it well. If anybody is looking in New York, Syracuse, Rochester, Gary and John are the folks that you guys want to be visiting with. And even if you're not investing in those areas, these guys now can say, we've done it. And so on the podcast, you'll hear Gary and John talk about some of their struggles, and we'll be launching it probably in a couple weeks, but I'll download it onto the Slack so you guys can enjoy it before it hits the podcast. But these guys have done it. They're part of our team, so it's always great to see success. So thank you, Gary. All right, who else would like to, who else would like to share where, here we are 8 weeks past in COVID, what have you done differently?
Well, I've started being a little more creative. So, because there's a deal that I was talking with you about today in Laredo, Texas. So it's a lot of potential here. I've done my homework. I've spoken with the property manager that's going to run it, which is Trinity, and I have to make contact directly with the seller. So I didn't get a chance to call. I told you I was going to call the listing agent, I didn't get a chance to. I jumped to another conference call, but tomorrow I will be reaching out to that listing agent and going to see if we can make a conference call with the seller, and let me try to explain to him that we need to, if he really wants us to get out of this property, let me take control of it. It's going to have to be for 3 years so I could get those numbers stabilized, and then we can go ahead and get an agency. Then I'll come to you and get the agency loan on it. But I'm gonna be creative and see if he'll accept or do a master lease with an option on it. Way, I'll have the time to do what I need to do.
So does anybody have any questions about master leasing? Has anybody done it? No. Okay. So Daryl is investigating this as an option where he sets up, basically he's renting the business from the owner, and then he's giving them the pricing that it is today. And you could correct me if I'm wrong on that, Daryl, but if he improves it, comes out of his capital, and then he buys it. 3 years later, he puts himself on agency debt, because we then can show that he has performed well, even though he hasn't been the owner. We can show that he's paid all the bills and such.
Right.
I have a question for that.
Well, you're correct.
Daryl.
Okay.
My question was, when you're dealing with a broker, and feeling new at this, at what point do you feel that is like a question to ask the broker to ask the owner? It just seems like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like you would make that ask early on in all situations. Like, how do you know when you can ask and when you can't ask, or when it's appropriate to and not? If you could comment.
Daryl?
Is she breaking up? Is she breaking up to only me, or or she not breaking up to no one else?
I heard her. So she's asking about jumping in and asking the broker about this as an option. When do you ask him that? Do you do that?
Okay.
Do you do it right away?
Yeah. Well, I'm a commercial agent. So no, you do it after you analyze your deal. After you see that deal is not going to be able to get funding, and when I say funding, I'm not talking about hard money. I'm talking about funding, agency debt, or maybe it's going to be agency or bank debt. If those numbers, you have several options. If there's several options you could take when a building's in distress, especially when you can't get a debt on it. Okay. First of all, let's define what's the stress. Let's say that the building occupancy is 50%. Let's say that the building has an economical vacancy of 60%, 60, or the building. Let's say the building it will not make it past even an inspection because it has been so much neglected. So if you cannot get an agency debt on that building because it is distressed, then you may have to become very creative. You may have to ask for master lease agreement with an option. You may have to ask for see how much debt is on it and how long. See how much debt is on it. Can you do see if he would just do a wraparound or carry the note, depending on what the situation is. In my situation, I'm asking for a master lease agreement. This way, I will be able to get control of the building. I'll make the payments because I'm not going to let him make the payments. I'll make the payments, and and I will get that building stabilized. I will get my 2 years, because Julie said get 2 years under my belt, so that could show experience. And then from there, I go ahead and get the agency debt on it. Because the option part, because there's two pieces. You got the lease, you got the option. And the option, you're going to put up an option fee for courtesy of taking it off the market. You're going to pay them a little fee, and you'll negotiate that too. So once you get that building stabilized, after whatever your plans are, 3 years, 5 years, then you go ahead and take it out. Call Julie up and say, listen, I need to get agency debt on this, and so forth. So you have, and in times like this right here, you may find yourself in situations to where you're going to have to be creative, because you may not be able to get agency debt on it. And I'm sure you all have heard that a lot of sellers have pulled their properties off the market. But those are the ones who have that ability. But there are those that cannot pull their properties off the market, and they have to sell. They are in trouble, and that's where you come in.
Wow.
So you can relieve them of that stress, and that's what my job is. I'm going to relieve him of his stress, so I can take that building, and all them people that didn't pay their rent because of COVID, I'm gonna set an example. I'm gonna have to set an example for at least one or two to get the other people to pay, because that's what it was all about. That's what it was all about. Any questions in reference
Anybody
to
have any questions on? Yeah.
Real quick, Daryl, I didn't catch, in a master lease scenario, are you putting any money down, or is it just a fee that you paid to kind of initiate that contract?
The fee that the only money that you will have to give up is the option fee, and that's going to come with agreement between you and him. I was always taught to try to go as low as possible, at 1% or whatever, but you negotiate the option fee with him. Some sellers may say, okay, I'll do the option fee, but I also want an additional certain amount with each payment. But again, that's everything. Everything in real estate is negotiable. So you negotiate the terms, and then once you get that done, your attorney could draw up the lease and the option, because there's two different documents. And just to let y'all know, because you may already know this, but once you sign that document, the lease and the option, you take that document down to the county and you register that document in the county. Because if he ever tried to try to sell that building, that document is going to be there when they go through the title. It's going to stop. You're going to say, wait a minute, Darryl got a lease option on this. You can't sell it. So make sure that you register those two documents with the county to cloud up that title, because you do have the lease on it.
Okay, Daryl.
Daryl,
one more. Yeah, Daryl, thanks so much, really. I did always have another question about that, though, regarding the fees. What about paying the broker? I mean, wouldn't you have to pay that? Doesn't the broker need to walk away with something if there's no sale at the time?
Okay, so excellent question. Again, you can negotiate. Remember, in commercial, some commercial deals, the broker may not get paid right then. They may get paid on the back end. So if between you, the seller, you'll discuss how that broker is going to get paid. Okay, and you could give enough to where the broker will get a compensation, or he could say, well, he could talk to the broker and say, listen, I'm going to do a master lease agreement here, and I got the lease agreement, but you will get, once he executes that agreement, and there are, in commercial, there are some deals where we wind up not getting paid for like 3 years, and it happens. That's the way it is. But once you negotiate, you can negotiate that with the seller. and here to clear all of that up. So that way that person is going to get paid. They may get paid when once we sell, or there may be in the listing agreement. Okay, it may be in the listing agreement that if you lease this, that I will get this percentage of the money, and that we say, okay, we'll do that. So it's always, there's going to be an avenue. That agent is not going to lose out, because if it was me and I was losing my money, my commission, I'll be a little ticked off at the seller. So, but no, and I will listen. Well, I can't. I'm gonna say in our listing agreements here where I'm licensed, yeah, it's a piece in there that says if you happen to lease it, that I will get paid this amount of money, and some also have a second that when you sell, I will also get paid this amount of money. So, but we'll negotiate that. We'll negotiate all of that to make sure that person is taken care of. I will make sure that, because I'm an agent and not a commercial guy, and I won't want no one to screw me over.
So Daryl, we love you. If anybody has questions to further your understanding of this creativity, please reach out to Daryl. He's always thinking about how to make things happen. So thank you for sharing. I'll take one more and then we're gonna break off. Is there anyone else who would like to share how your days look different today than they did 8 weeks ago with COVID? Now, I don't need to know that you've, cleaned and painted all your rooms. I'm talking about multifamily.
I think for me, the big thing was the market that has changed, right? 8 weeks ago, I thought I was going to close on that house in Oklahoma City, and then I was supposed to close middle of May. And then, I don't think now Oklahoma City is the best market to invest in because it's so tied into oil and gas and the recession. So it's like that's completely changed. So figuring out the new markets and this new world is kind of, I think, the big change for me and all of us.
Yeah. Very true. And, we talked about a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, we had Chris Nebenzahl from Yardi Matrix, who, by the way, will be here next week. So please make sure you commit to Tuesday at 8 Zoom and listen to Chris. See what has changed. See how the markets are reacting to what we're seeing in collections, what we're seeing on class, A class, B class, C class, how that is performing. So make sure you tune in next week. But really interesting, over the last 8 weeks, how, many people have just put their hands in their pocket, taken their foot off the gas, and just sat back and are waiting. We really had some questions about how the collections would go for April, and I have to tell you that it's all been very, very positive. April, May, many of my LPs that I work with are very happy with the returns that the payments that they're receiving, the income. So, from a lender standpoint, we'd like to say that this is going to continue. However, we don't know about the unemployment benefits. Is that going to continue? We now have a new stimulus package that we don't know much about, so that's also going to present some questions. But it'll be interesting to see July, let's say, if they do continue to decide that unemployment, the increase is going to be down. How will people perform? Will they start holding on to their capital a little bit more? If you didn't see the webinar that we had, an interview with David Moore, who has 40,000 units, and he spoke very clearly that he doesn't see cap rates going up. He doesn't see that rents are going to be flat for more than a year. It was very interesting, some of the things that he mentioned. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, as you probably are as well. But where we're going to also see some changes and if your market is near a port, that is also something that you're going to need to consider, especially if it's like an industrial property where imports and exports are really relying on the foreign countries bringing in and exporting, and those areas are going to really probably have some time where they're not going to be growing. Now, if you look at Savannah, Georgia, a big part of their business is the ports. So, you know, I think this is something that we're going to be talking to Chris about next week. There is a lot of infrastructure in Savannah, Georgia, which presents a very positive area for multifamily, but how will the imports and exports, how will that impact it? It'll be really interesting. So my takeaway on this is bring your questions next week for, you know, the areas that you're looking at or you're considering. Let's get some feedback from Chris, and feel free to push those questions over to me early on so I can get you some data points on that. So without further ado, I think what I'd like to do now, unless someone else would like to tell us what they're working on, is to break out into small breakout rooms. I know some of you are working with or have been with Brian on Friday afternoons, but maybe you haven't. This is a great opportunity to meet folks one on, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. I'm not sure how the breakout will go, but take 10 minutes, get to know each other. We'll push out maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we'll do a couple rounds and get to know each other, meet each other, tell us what you're working on. Okay, so we're gonna go in, and what you do is you press the button that's going to be presented to you shortly, and we'll jump into the rooms. So we'll see you in a little while. All right, we're all making our way back.
Are we back in the same room?
Everybody's making
Oh, okay.
their way back.
Okay.
There should be.
Mauricio, we should maybe even do some practice runs, presentations.
I
to
think
each other.
so. I think
thinking-
that would be
I think
fun.
that I think so
Yeah.
too.
It's always challenging and fun.
All right, you guys we are all back, it looks like. So I'm gonna ask you, was that fun?
Yay.
Yes.
Never want to
Yeah.
do that again? Was that good?
Yeah.
Yes, a little more time would be nice.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I want to know one thing that you can share about someone else that you found interesting. And maybe a little funny, I don't know. Come on, Brady, what do you got?
Well, Jay and I got to talk to each other a lot, and I think we took all of Michelle's time. So Jay's a good talker. That's what I learned. I mean, in Montana, and the land price is extremely high, apparently. So, yeah, we had a good talk.
My, yeah, good. All right, well, why don't we do it? We'll do it. We're another 15 minutes. We'll make this one our last one, and you guys can finish off. Now, let's see. My hope is that you go into different rooms. Let me see. Let's try this again. This is my first time, so I'm new at this.
You're doing great.
So Brady,
Julie.
you're with. What's that?
You're doing great, Julie.
Oh, thank you. So Brady, you're with Jay and Michelle. So
And Michelle,
why?
yeah.
Let me see this. I want to move all participants to return to the
what,
main.
Julie?
Okay, breakout countdown. What's that?
Nothing.
Recreate. Here we go. All existing rooms will be replaced, and there you go. All right, you guys are making your way back. Nice.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Mauricio. How are you?
Good, good.
You getting some rest?
Great format. This is fun.
Oh, good, good.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, still sleeping only a few hours, but it's good.
Yeah. So welcome back, everybody. I'm so glad you made it back. I just wanted to, okay, I got another question. Does anyone have anything funny or something that you learned in that group that you want to share with us that might be important to use against them? No. Anybody? It was all boring?
No, it was not boring.
No, not boring.
Good.
No, so I'd like to share something that I already shared just now to the group. And it's a very important fact in life. And somebody asked me a question about raising money. And my suggestion was actually, it's a fact. Just remember this. People you think will invest with you will not. And the ones you think will not invest with you, they will.
That is very profound, Tim.
Thank you.
I like it.
Wow. Can anyone have a response to that? Can they agree?
That sounds pretty accurate.
My mom always said you can't judge a book by its cover, so she must have been right.
But will your mom invest with you?
That's
Probably
the
not.
question.
So the ones that I think that will invest with me, I'm wasting my time pursuing them. I should go to the other list, it sounds like.
It's good practice.
It is. It's a
You
good
know,
practice.
I know that there's folks that are new, and I've shared this in my own group, but if you're starting to look for brokers in an area, let's say you want to go to Minneapolis and that's your market, my recommendation is do not start looking in Minneapolis. Start in a different market and make all of your mistakes with those brokers, because you need the people to think that you're smart and you know what you're doing. And so don't make all the mistakes in the market you want to be in. Okay, so that's my little takeaway for you today.
That's like dating advice, right, Julie?
That's true, yes. Hey, you guys, I am so thankful that you show up every week. You know, my goal is to provide value. I think it's always valuable to get to know the folks that we're going to be doing business, whether it's going to be as a partner or whether one of us are going to be on your deal as an LP. So I think that it's super valuable to spend the time here as we get to know each other better. I think, again, there's so much value in the Slack. So if you met somebody that you haven't met before, reach out to them during the week and just continue your conversation. There's just so much value in this. So with that, I will thank you for joining me tonight. Remember, next week that we have Chris Nebenzahl from Yardi Matrix. You don't want to miss that, you guys. So have yourself a great rest of your night. Stay safe, and you know, don't cough on anybody. You might be put in jail. So see you guys.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah,
Hi,
thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.